Picking up where we last left off is episode 25. As the adage goes, explaining a joke is kind of like dissecting a frog. Sure, you'd understand more about it, but it's now dead. Now, if you've watched Gintama, it can get pretty overwhelming getting bombarded by all the references the show throws at you. Even more so if you don't have the proper context to begin with. So let me try to help parse the jokes which you might have missed. In this series, I'll be attempting to provide the context for all of Gintama's jokes and references, which I'll go over one by one in chronological order. Think of this as a glorified translator's note coming from a guy who doesn't even speak Japanese. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
まさか延長するとは思ってなかったんで、3クール目全然作ってなかったみたいですけど。
まあそんな時あれだ。寄せ集めの総集編でお茶を濁すんだよ。
In long-running series, sometimes the studio might decide to put out a recap episode so that they can artificially lengthen the gap between the source material and the anime. Since the studio can just reuse assets that they've previously made, this also means that the animators get to catch some much-needed break. Jackie Chan is a famous Hong Kongese actor who often stars in action flicks. He's well known to have performed most of the stunts himself, which had earned him global recognition. For one reason or another, Ladies 4 is a recurring reference in Gintama. Here, they highlighted the fact that the host for Ladies 4 has changed to Tokumitsu Masayuki.
もうみんな敵ね。誰も信じないね。
いい心がけだ。もっと俺を嫌え、恨め、そして憎め。その憎しみのパワーを糧に、この腐った世の中を生き抜いていくんだよ。
This unapologetically edgy line is a reference to Itachi's message to Sasuke in Naruto.
愚かなる弟よ。この俺を殺したくば、恨め、憎め。そして、醜く生き延びるがいい。
まずいな。やはりこうなったか。今のよろずやですき焼きをやろうなんて。
This art style and inner monologue is very Death Note-esque. In fact, this entire episode is basically a parody of Death Note, with all its mind games and whatnot.
悪いがかくまってもらい卵、世話肉なるネギ、悪いとこんにゃく感謝すき焼き。
Katsura's line came out as a Freudian slip of the things you would find in a hot pot.
鍋を支配する権利が与えられる。つまりそれこそが鍋将軍。
Nabe literally means a hot pot, and shogun is the title of the past military dictators of Japan. So, metaphorically speaking, Nabe shogun is someone who manages to conquer this hot pot.
あの不思議生き物は無視していいだろう。あの手で箸はつかめない。適用なのかよ。
Gintoki assumes that Elizabeth's pudgy hand would be a detriment to his dexterity, but he is shown to have superb origami skills, which requires very precise movements. A Scud missile is a type of tactical ballistic missile that was developed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War. In this case, Jinpachi is trying to emulate anime characters where they exclaim the name of their moves while performing their actions.
Hey. その通りさ。お前が今まで牛だと思って食べてきた食卓の肉はすべて安い豚肉だ。
The main point here is that pork is seen as less luxurious compared to beef.
Oh, Fujiyama geisha sukiyaki.
Apparently, Fujiyama geisha sukiyaki are stereotypical words that someone who doesn't speak Japanese would blurt out when they're asked to speak the language. In Guilty Gear, the character Chip Zanoof
Fujiyama geisha sushi sukiyaki banzai
also blurts out these words whenever he's declaring his attack.
こいつは鍋将軍どころじゃねえ。こいつは皇帝鍋レオンだ。
Nabe Leon is a cross between Nabe and Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte was a French military and political leader who rose to prominence during the French Revolution. This is literally Ryuk from Death Note.
Shin-chan, Taka-chin.
Throughout this episode, there will be several references to dog breeds. Firstly, this episode centers around Jinpachi's friend, Taka-chin. Taka-chin is a nickname that derives from his actual name, Takaya Hachibe. Coincidentally, Chin is also the name of a Japanese dog breed.
一緒に寺子屋に通ってた頃も俺がいじめられてたらよくおめえら兄弟が助けてくれたもんだ。
A temple school, or terakoya, was a private educational institution that taught the children of Japanese commoners how to read and write back in the Edo period.
今俺族に入ってんだ。知ってるかブルドッグってよ。
The gang that Taka-chin belongs to is called the Bulldogs, which is a type of dog breed. This episode also touches upon the Bosozoku subculture, which are basically Japanese youth biker gangs. The Bosozoku aesthetic is heavily inspired by greaser culture from the United States, characterized by pompadour-style haircuts, embroidered jumpsuits, baggy pants, and military boots.
タカチンコ？誰？しんちゃん、あなたそんなにタカチンポのことが。
In Japanese, chinko and chinpo refer to a penis. So, takachinko and takachinpo are derogatory nicknames that derive from takachin.
喧嘩ならあたいらも混ぜな。寺門通信衛隊特攻部隊。
To rival the Bulldogs, the Yorozuya introduced themselves as the Maltese, which is another type of dog breed.
てめえら何者だ？俺たちはあれだこれ。特攻部隊 A。なんだっけやこれ。
特攻部隊ポメラニアンじゃなかったかしらこら。
Gintoki and Otae forgot their gang name and blurted out Pomeranian instead, which again is another type of dog breed.
私は風になる。キャッホー。
あれ姉上なんか違う世界の扉開いちゃった。
I think that this is a reference to the Ghibli movie, The Cat Returns. In the movie, there's this young girl who got isekai'd into a world of talking cats by literally speeding through another dimension, a la Back to the Future. This is another Antonio Inoki reference. The first thing that popped in mind when seeing this is that it's a reference to Kakashi's 1,000 Year of Death from Naruto. But then, how did Naruto came up with it in the first place? Could it be a cultural thing? Then again, shoving your finger up someone else's bum isn't exclusive to Japan. So, what do I know?
ではあなた方は差し詰め鬼を退治しに来た桃太郎というわけですかな。
Momotaro is a classic hero from Japanese folklore. Legend says that he was born from a giant peach. After Momotaro grew old enough to be kicked out from his parents' basement, he ventured towards Onigashima along with a group of assorted animals, namely a monkey, a dog, and a pheasant. Together, they defeated all the Oni-chans in Onigashima, and afterwards, he brought home all the loot. The end.
おうパスタデカ、アンパン買ってきたぞ。
なんだよパスタって。僕に何のゆかりもないじゃないか。
なんかパスタっぽいだろ生き様が。それから俺のことはヤマさんと呼べ。
I don't think this is a reference to anything, but I don't know anymore. Enter Matsudaira Katakuriko. He is based on Matsudaira Katamori, who was also the founding father of the real-life Shinsengumi.
今日一番ついていない方は乙女座のあなたです。今日は何をやってもうまくいきません。
とっつぁんって何座？ああ、乙女座だけど。
In Gintama, Kondo and Matsudaira are Virgos, but this does not hold true for their real-life counterparts. Kondo Isami was born on November 9th, 1834, making him a Scorpio, whereas Matsudaira Katamori was born on February 15th, 1836, making him an Aquarius.
お前これ絶対言うなよ。歌っていいとものタモさんいるじゃん。
Go On Sing is the subtitles translation for Utate Itomo, which is a spoof of the long-running Japanese reality TV show Warate Itomo. The subs also typed out Tama-san, but context-wise, I think Tamo-san is what Matsudaira actually said here. Tamo-san is a nickname that derives from Tamori, who is the stage name of the actual presenter of Warate Itomo, Morita Kazayoshi.
世界の黒沢とマダム純子と浜翔とショットガンの部長刑事もだ。
As for the rest of these names, I think they're just something that Sorachi came up with, but do correct me if I'm mistaken. Jintan is a type of medicinal candy that's somewhat popular in Japan. It contains healthy ingredients such as cinnamon, mint, cumin, and cloves, amongst other things, but at the end of the day, it's not really a medicine.
おい前見て大丈夫俺シュマハだから
Schumacher is a former professional Formula One driver. As of 2022, he holds the joint record for the most numbers of World Drivers' Championship titles. These censored characters, who are riding a tandem bike together, are heavily implied to be the Doronbo gang from the 17th anime, Yatarmon.
なんなんだよありゃ。
軽井沢あたりと勘違いしてるプチセレブ気取りの哀れな奴らですよ。
Karuizawa is a resort town located in the Nagano prefecture in Japan. This is going to be pure conjecture on my part, but it seems that it's a place where washed-up Japanese celebrities would spend their holidays in.
見えるかあいつら殺し屋だ。
いやそらねえよ。
わからねえのかおめえには。あの凄まじいオーラちげえねえ。
いや見えねえよわかんねえよ。何見えてんのあったら。
This could be a reference to stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Since only stand users can see someone else's stand, this indicates that Kondo isn't a stand user.
わかった。これは蓬莱県の中華丼、こっちはキッチンバーミーのナポリタンソース、そしてまとい寿司の味噌汁、出汁を変えたね。
さすがはかぐらちゃんだ。
究極の舌と呼ぶがよい。
Kagura's demonstrating her ability to taste specific ingredients within a dish. As such, she wanted to be dubbed as the ultimate tongue. I would say that this could be a reference to Erina from Shokugeki no Soma, because she basically had a similar ability called the God's Tongue, but Food Wars only started serializing on Shonen Jump in late 2012, whereas this episode originally aired sometime in 2006, so I don't think that's the case.
あれ
何俺の鼻くそか俺の鼻くそが
Gintoki thought that his booger caused the explosion. What the fuck? This could be a reference to Mr. 5 from One Piece, who has the ability to make any part of his body explode, which includes his booger.
これを1日12時間やるだけでみるみるお腹の肉が取れちゃうんだから
This is a parody of a television shopping network.
このチャンスを逃すともしかしたらまた
それに洞爺湖ってこれ土産物じゃないかい。いらんよこんなの。
Lake Toya is an actual place somewhere in Hokkaido.
ヘルプミーなどうしたい
アブラゲーションシェイプアブラ
ヘルプミーな Help me な
So the context here is that Shinpachi and Kagura are attempting to say the English phrase, help me, but ended up blurting out random English words instead. If you listen closely, Shinpachi says, which of course refers to herpes, instead of hump me as written in the subs here. Whereas Kagura somehow ended up blurting out, which is a critically acclaimed American crime movie by Quentin Tarantino.
あとは見つけても絶対に殺してはいかん。大変なことになるぞ。
繰り返します。ゴキブリを見ても絶対に殺さないでください。仲間を呼ぶ恐れがあります。絶対に殺さないでください。
There's this Asian conventional wisdom that you shouldn't kill a cockroach, else it will signal the rest of its family to come invade you. Now, I believe that this is a classic case of correlation does not equal causation, since cockroaches rarely come in ones to begin with. You just haven't spotted the rest of them. Now, while I wouldn't entirely dismiss the idea that cockroaches would signal their kin to come invade you as part of their dying message, what I think is more likely to be the case is that the cockroaches you've theoretically killed just so happens to be the first one you've spotted. Enemy spotted. If you kill the roach, then you would know for a fact that other ones you find are distinct from the one you've just killed. Whereas if you leave it be, then it would be hard to tell if you've only been seeing one single roach this entire time, or if you've actually been seeing multiple different ones one at a time.
寺門2サードシングルお前の兄ちゃん引きこもり
Hikikomori refers to someone who is experiencing an extreme degree of social withdrawal. The term can refer to both the person experiencing it as well as the phenomenon itself. This phenomenon has been an ever-growing concern in Japan's modern society.
今度歌っていいともに出るらしいっすよ
This is another reference to Warate Itomo.
ピンコと春江の対決はどうなったの？
Pinko refers to Pinko Izumi, whereas Harue refers to Akagi Harue. Both of them are actresses who appeared in the Japanese drama Wataru Seiken wa Onibakari.
ほらほら二人とも行きますよ
事件は事務所で送ってるんじゃない？
って何ですかその格好は耳でか鼻の穴でか
Gintoki is dressed up as Aoshima Shunsaku, the main protagonist of Odoru Daiso Sasen. The huge ears and oversized nostrils are obviously exaggerated for comedic purposes, but the actor who plays as Aoshima Shunsaku, Oda Yuji, does, to a lesser degree, exhibit these physical traits. Now, in the next scene,
都知事と同じ名前の石原です。
Gintoki introduced himself as Ishihara. In Odoru Daiso Sasen, Aoshima Shunsaku always brings up the fact that he has the same name as the governor of Tokyo.
君の名前は
青島俊作都知事と同じ名前の青島です
In real life, Ishihara was the actual name of the governor of Tokyo when this chapter was first published.
わかりづらいよで神楽ちゃんは何
容疑者のギバちゃんある
Whereas Kagura cosplays as Shinji Muroi from the same series. Kagura introduced herself as Giba-chan. Giba-chan derives from the actor who plays Shinji, Yanagiba Toshiro.
つうことはお前は交渉人だな。
Gintoki chalks up Shinpachi as the Negotiator, which is the nickname of another one of Odoru Daiso Sasen's characters, Masayoshi Mashita.
ほらサンタマリアじゃねえ
Shinpachi retorted that he is no Santa Maria, who is the actor who plays as Masayoshi Mashita.
おお、あれが彼氏？
国民的アイドルグループハンサムのリーダーゴエモンある
Goemon shares his name with the legendary Japanese hero, Goemon, who is basically the Japanese equivalent of Robin Hood. In Gintama, Goemon is the leader of the boy group Han-Samu, which notably is a double entendre. Han-Samu is the literal romanized version of the English word handsome, whereas in kanji, Han-Samu also reads as
anti-samurai,
hinting at the fact that Goemon will be one of this episode's antagonists. This silhouette is a reference to Detective Conan. Detective Conan is a long-running detective manga that publishes on Weekly Shonen Sunday. In Conan, when a story is going over the method of killing, they would use this silhouette as a stand-in for the yet-to-be-revealed perpetrator.
どうするあるタカ
そうだな、ユージ。
Taka and Yuji are characters from the Japanese television drama Abunai Deka. The show is about a pair of detectives, Takayama Toshiki and Yuji Oshita, solving cases with their unorthodox methods.
とりあえず、龍神会の氷室と鮫島を当たろう。
Now, I haven't watched the actual series, but I think the other pair of names, Himuro and Samijima, are just made-up names that Gintoki and Kagura improvised as part of their skit, while Ryujinkai is a made-up gang name.
そう、あの探偵漫画やその推理漫画で出てくる謎の影。
This is literally Conan Edogawa with a top knot.
あの謎の影。
And this is just Detective Kogoro with a top knot. You see, the basic premise of Detective Conan is that there's this high school genius named Shinichi. One day, he got caught up in an incident with a black organization and found himself stuck with the body of a child. To hide this fact, he took up the alias Edogawa Conan. But because he's now seen as a literal child in the eyes of society, he finds himself having a hard time gaining any semblance of credibility whenever he posits a theory. As if being a high schooler would give you more street cred, but I digress. Anyway, his solution to this pickle is to literally just drug an actual detective and use a voice changer and impersonate the drug detective so that Shinichi can convey his deductions, which is what the scene is parodying here. This clapboard reads Kyabinaten Danto Keiji. This is a spoof of a television drama called Tsuchiwa desu Keiji that aired on Fuji TV.
皆さんこの事件どう思われますか。一枚の脅迫状から始まりとうとう犠牲者が出てしまいましたね。
Gintoki is parodying as Furuhata Ninzaburo, who is the eponymous protagonist of a Japanese police detective drama. The show is titled, which is a spoof of the aforementioned Wataru Seken wa Oni Bakari.
犯人はお前だ。
んなわけない。ってあんたもしかしてなんとなく言ってるだけなんじゃないの？
This is a continuation of the bit in episode 28, where Matsudaira accuses Tamo-san of being a killer.
歌っていいとものタモさんいるじゃん。あの人も殺し屋だ。
Another thing to note here is that Tamo-san introduces himself as the storyteller.
ところでタモさん、なんでドラマの現場にいるの？
え、俺はあれだよ、ストーリーテラー？
This is a reference to Tamori's other role where he played as the storyteller in Yonimo Kimio na Monogatari.
お前のやったことは全てまるっとお見通しだ。
あんた誰？
私かい？私はトリックの先生だよ。
はい、10ちゃんと4ちゃんが混ざってんぞ。
Kagura dresses up as Yamaguchi Kumiko from Gokusen. Gokusen is a manga about a math teacher dealing with troublesome students in school. The manga has been adapted into a TV show, and Yamaguchi Kumiko is played by Nakama Yukie. Now, Nakama Yukie also plays in another television drama called Trick as Yamada Naoko. Trick is a story about a broke magician who reluctantly joins a university physics professor on a quest to dispel supernatural cases and shut down local cults. Kagura mixed up these two characters, which is why Gintoki pointed out that she mixed up Channel 10 and Channel 4, which I assume to be the channel number for these two respective shows. This set is a reference to the Japanese variety TV show called It's a show where the audience would bring in heirlooms and other possible valuable items, which would then be appraised by a group of experts. The signboard is another reference to Ladies 4.
おいお前、とっとと正体表すあるよ。
いえ、私生まれつきこの姿のアマントなんですけど。
あの子私と似て男運がないくせに頑固だから。
In this cut, Gintoki and Kagura dress up as famous detectives in popular works of fiction. Gintoki as Sherlock Holmes and Kagura as Hercule Poirot.
今度はもっと普通のやり方で伝えてあげてください。
When we cut back to Gintoki and Kagura, they've completely changed up their cosplays. This time, Gintoki dresses up as Kindaichi Kosuke, while Kagura cosplays as Kindaichi Hajime. Kindaichi Kosuke is a fictional detective that appears in Yokomiza Seishi's work, whereas Kindaichi Hajime is the protagonist of the manga The Kindaichi Case Files by Kanari Yozaburo. In the Kindaichi Case Files, Hajime is supposedly the grandson of Kindaichi Kosuke. So it's kind of like what Monkey Punch's Lupin the Third is to Maurice LeBlanc's Gentleman Thieves series.
つか誰？
This time, Gintoki and Kagura are dressed up as characters from the novel Ubume no Natsu by Kyogoku Natsuhiko.
焼きあった銀座風呂でした。
Gintoki introduces himself as Ginzaburo, which is a spoof of the aforementioned Ninzaburo. And folks, thank you all for watching, and see you next time.